So I call this Ride Along Stories. You are riding along with me as I tell a story. So sometimes I'll talk about things that I may not have videos of, but I still want to talk about it. So this is kind of how I do that. But today begins the story of my second vehicle. It's also my second Dodge Ram. And the one I got into a lot of trouble with was a 1993 Dodge Ram 150 regular cab, two-wheel drive 318 with an 8-foot bed in a two-tone silver and gray. Man, that was a mouthful. So now this truck was originally my dad's truck. It's the one that he got to replace his 1986 Ram. The same 1986 Ram, that was my first vehicle that I talked about in the previous vid, which I'll go ahead and link to that vid in the description. So now in this truck, my dad bought it in December of 1992. And surprisingly, I was digging through some stuff and I found the original retail installment contract. It's kind of interesting looking at this contract and just seeing what Rams were selling for back then. Now this 1993 Ram was a huge upgrade to the 86 Ram. And I mean huge. Even though essentially they were the same configuration, but that 318 that they had in common were completely different. The 318 on the 86 was the old LA series. So that put out 140 horsepower. Yeah, you heard that right. 140 horsepower out of a V8 in a full-size truck. That's pretty bad. Now, in 93, the 318 was part of the Magnum series. It had to put out 220 horsepower. 220, that's 80 more horsepower than the previous truck. Now, here's where it gets weird. So, he bought this truck in 92, December 92, and he didn't hold on to it for very long. The boat that I talked about in the previous video ended up getting sold. And without that boat, my dad didn't really need a truck. Well, he ended up buying a 1994 Dodge Ram van in all these crazy green colors. But here's the thing. He, for whatever reason, which I'm not going to complain, he decided not to trade in the 93 Ram. He decided instead to just go ahead and give it to me, and that's when he got rid of the 86 Ram. So even though this 318 was only 220 horsepower, the truck itself back then, much lighter than the trucks of today. I need a regular cab configuration, even with that 8-foot bed. They were just lighter. They didn't have all the gadgets, all the gizmos, all the stuff. Like, look at all this stuff. They didn't have all that. That meant you could have a vehicle making less horsepower and be pretty dang fast because your horsepower to weight ratio was much better because these vehicles were so much lighter. And that's kind of what the deal was with this 93 truck. But besides that, honestly, I think I had a factory freak. Even my friends, like gearheads too, they're like, dude, your truck, there's something weird about it. It's way faster than it should be. And I mean, it felt that way. It felt a lot faster than it should have been. And because of that, I got myself into a lot of trouble. I went cruising. On that side of town where I grew up, the cruising spot was grass shit. So that's pretty much where I spent most of my Friday and Saturday nights. I went out on grass shit. And for me, cruising was about racing. I loved racing. And you're thinking like, wait, you had a full-size truck with an 8-foot bed. I'm like, I know, but it was fast, I'm telling you. Now, quick PSA, I gotta get this out. I do not condone nor endorse any form of street racing. Any racing should always be done on a legal, sanctioned racetrack or in Mexico, where it seems a whole bunch of YouTubers seem to go to all the time. It's kind of weird, is they're making like 4, 5, 10, 15-hour road trips to make a 10-minute video showing off in Mexico. But, you know, that's where it's at, Mexico. I guess it's legal there. Now that we got that whole thing out of the way, back to my factory freak fast truck. And you may be laughing like you couldn't have been that fast. Well, let me put it this way. Now I know Mustang GTs of the early 90s weren't known to be fast. They're not like the Mustang GTs of now. And back then, the Mustang GT was kind of considered your entry point. Like if you could beat a Mustang GT, then you were fast. You were part of the muscle car crowd or muscle truck, whatever crowd. They were kind of like the entry point, but they weren't that fast. My truck with an 8-foot bed could take out Mustang GTs no problem. But also remember, this truck, again, I keep saying this over and over again, much faster motor truck, which couldn't spin the tires on ice. This truck had no problem lighting them up. I mean, no problem. And I love doing burnouts. And I love doing burnouts so much, I pretty much did burnouts any chance I got. And I burnt through tires quick. I remember constantly rotating the tires, just trying to get as much out of them as I could. Fortunately, one of those chances I had to burn out happened to be while I was cruising grass shit, and in front of the Roseville police. Yeah, I remember that. I remember getting pulled over. I remember handing the officer my license and registration, and him looking at it, looking at me, and his words, "Showing off in Daddy's truck, huh?" Of course, I wasn't too appreciative of that comment, even though he was technically right. And I did get a ticket for, I don't remember exactly what it was, like display of speed or instigating racing, something like that. I'm not sure what, but that was unfortunately just the first of many incidents of me being pulled over on the side of the road. I did not always have the money to pay up. And when you don't pay your tickets, you get your license suspended. And God forbid you get pulled over while your license is suspended, you get your truck impounded. And when your truck gets impounded, you get to go for a ride in the back of the police car. Now imagine all that happening right in front of your new girlfriend's house, where all her neighbors and her family get to see you getting handcuffed and thrown in the back of a police car. But it gets even better. So all this happened in the middle of my workday. Like, I took off from work to help a buddy, but this was during lunch at work, and just so happened that the city police station was directly across the street from where I worked. And my boss is actually the one that walked across the street to the police station and bailed me out. My boss was also, he actually was the owner of the place that I worked. And yeah, I remember walking back across the street from the police station, and obviously I was thanking him profusely. I was just like, thank you, I'll repay you. And of course he's like, don't worry, you will. I mean, he controlled my paycheck, so... but then what's funny is, after all this, I actually went right back to work. I finished out my shift, and I didn't even realize it till later that I had never clocked out. Moral of the story, don't be stupid enough to not pay them and get license suspended. Now I think that was Michigan back then. I don't know what they do now. I think some states like flat out put an arrest warrant out for you. I don't know. Anyway, don't mess with that. Don't be stupid. Don't be an idiot. Oh, what happened to the wet roads? And the lighting's weird. Oh, sorry about that. Well, earlier, I actually already got to work. I ran out of time. And now, you are joining me on my commute back home from work. Unlike my 86, I said this 93 was a lot faster, and I was already having a ton of fun racing it, and beating up on some other fast cars at the time. So it was definitely worth modding. Now, at first, they started out a little bit modest. First mod I did was just got some good old ABS blacked out headlight covers. Eventually ran a big white Mopar Performance sticker on top of the windshield, and then also put a whole bunch of different racing brand sticker on the back window. I mean, we all know those stickers add 5 horsepower each. You know, performance and engine wise, probably the first thing I did on this truck, ripped out the stock intake and threw on just an old school 14-inch pie plate air cleaner just on top of the throttle body. And the next thing I did, I got some better plugs. I think I probably just went some NGKs. Also ran some better wires, which you can see in these pictures. I think I either had like 8 or 8.5 millimeter performance plug wires. And the next thing I got is a common thing you still get to this day, is a tune. Now, back then it was a little bit different. Mopar Performance actually sold a performance-tuned PCM, and it was just a direct replacement for the stock PCM. However, here's the funny thing. Mopar Performance did not make a performance-tuned PCM for a 93 Dodge Ram truck. They did, however, make one for the 92 Dodge Dakota. So here I am, I want a PCM for my truck. They don't have one, but they do for the Dakota. Now I'm thinking to myself, what does it matter? They're both had the exact same engine, both had the 318 Magnum, both two-wheel drive, automatic trucks. So why would it matter if it's a Dakota or a Ram? The people at the Mopar parts counter, like, nope, not gonna work. The guys at Mancini Racing, went to them, they're like, nope, not gonna work. And everybody's like, not gonna work. Me, I'm 16, I'm stubborn, I'm like, I don't see why not. So in the end, I did get the PCM, I did put it in my Ram truck, and guess what? It ran, it worked. And as far as my butt dyno is concerned, my truck definitely ran a lot better and a lot stronger with that Mopar Performance tuned PCM. Up to this point of the story, that's pretty much all the mods that I had done. Ooh, did you hear that Challenger? Sorry, gotta catch up to him. I heard him though, he sounds pretty sweet. Alright, we're gonna see if we can catch up to this Challenger. I don't know what it has, but it sounded pretty nice. I have to get around this Mercedes though. Alright, Mercedes, get out of my way. Thank you. Oh, now this Tahoe's in my way. See, this is me. This is what happens when I see a Challenger on the road or any kind of Mopar, cool Mopar. I will try to catch up to it, and this is part of why my wife eventually gave in and said, fine, get yourself a dang Challenger already. Because this is what happens. I see one, and then I like go crazy trying to pull up next to it, get next to it, and just look at it. Oh, there it goes. See, getting around someone too. Just RT. Love them Challengers. Oh, it's right behind me. Can you see it? Can you see it? Ain't that awesome? Now I'm just staring at it in my rear view mirror. That is one pretty car. Bye-bye, Challenger. Well, that was exciting. I can't imagine till mine actually comes in. I cannot wait. All right, so now I feel this is where this story comes to an end in my 1993 Dodge Ram. Because then came one fateful night in the spring of 1995. Oh, that pothole hurt.